Well, Monica, really appreciate you coming and joining us today, Monica Martin, and with Family Promise here in Lubbock. And we just featured you recently in the latest Texas Texan, and it's a wonderful story, a wonderful ministry that you're involved in. I was glad to share that, but wanted to call you back and kind of do a video interview with you to kind of go in depth in some of the stuff that you shared in the publication. But congratulations on your new role as Executive Director of Family Promise here in Lubbock. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your new role.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Curt. It was an honor to be featured in the Texan. I have such fond memories of my time at Texas Tech, and truly, as a first-generation high school graduate in my family, being able to go on and attend Texas Tech University and graduate is a huge honor and accomplishment for myself. And so I'm just grateful to be able to share a little bit about my story, as well as knowing how that can empower and inspire others who may have some similarities to me as well.
Very nice, very nice. In the story in the magazine, tell us a little bit about where you're from, and you referenced a rough childhood.
Sure.
Define that a little bit.
Sure. So I was originally born in Garden City, Kansas, and when I was 12 years old, my family decided that there was not much left for them in Kansas, and so we made the trek with a 3-week-old infant. I have 3 younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 4, and we made the trek in 7 days. So my mom, 3 weeks postpartum, packed up a house and with an infant, and we moved to Earth, Texas. We actually moved a little ways outside of Earth, but Spring Lake Earth High School is where I ended up going to school, and so that was where we planted a lot of our roots in the community, and really invested most of our time in the people there, and they invested in return in ours. My dad worked for a farmer, and so lots of manual labor, lots of hard work that he participated in for not a lot of pay for a family of 6. And so because of that, we endured a lot of, not necessarily lack of resources, but not a life that was one that embodied a lot of privilege or a lot of excitement as far as vacations went. We did not go on vacations, eating at home, making sure that we were taking care of there and prioritizing that. We did receive some federal benefits through the government, and so that was always helpful as well. Excuse me. My family also had neither of my parents had graduated from high school themselves. And so that was also a limiting factor in the jobs that my dad could apply for and qualify for. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so she did her absolute best and was a wonderful caregiver for us while we were there. As you can imagine, with a lack of resources can often come just some additional stress on the family and dysfunction that can carry through both in decision-making, parenting, as well as navigating hardships when they do come along. And so a lot of my extended family has also experienced an extensive history of domestic violence, poverty, drug abuse, substance abuse, and so forth. And so my family was no exception to that.
Wow. So all of that, with that context and that background, I would think, moving to Earth might have felt like you're on the edge of the earth, and and it's like. But you mentioned the FCCLA, but apparently the whole move to Earth and high school involvement was a game changer for you, or a life changer. Explain how that.
Absolutely. So obviously, living in a small town, there are also a lack of resources just because of a small community. So one of the organizations that my high school offered was, we had both FFA and FCCLA. And in 8th grade, I was able to participate in FFA. So that was my first taste of what it really looked like to be a part of a group that had leadership development, right? And really being able to hone in on some of those skills. When I entered high school, I was enrolled in my first family and consumer science course, which was formerly known as home economics, but has since expanded into an entire world of just different categories: interior design, culinary arts, fashion design. We're talking leadership development. And so because I was enrolled in that course, I had the opportunity to participate in an organization called FCCLA, which stands for Family, Career, Community Leaders of America.
Okay.
And through this organization, I had the chance to participate in a competitive event. And this is a student-led organization. So I was given the responsibility to create an entire presentation and project. And, excuse me, at the time, I created my project around being financially wise. And I had created an acronym. I was a freshman, 14 years old. And I reflect on that. My project is no exception to the skills and the wonder that students can create when you give them that freedom. And looking back, knowing, without really realizing how dear financial literacy was to my heart at that point, and knowing that it starts young, knowing that we have to educate kids from the time they enter school all the way to graduation on these different avenues of what that looks like. And so I was able to create this presentation. I actually took that competitive event all the way to nationals.
Oh, wow.
And I was so proud of myself. It was my first taste of, wow, what can I do? What can I do? What can my peers do? The other element of
So it's very empowering.
it was so empowering. And the other element of FCCLA is that peer-to-peer education and that peer-to-peer empowerment as well. Because you feel more able to exceed your limits and to look at what you can do and challenge yourself when you're also challenging each other. I had a great chapter, great peers, great schoolmates who were able to also participate in this group. And so the next year I actually ran for office.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I've competed. I loved it. I loved everything about it. And I fell in love with the organization. And so I ran for office and was actually elected as a state officer my first year, which at that time was a little more unheard of. They wanted you to be a regional officer before you became a state officer. And so just due to some...
You just leapfrogged right
I just leapfrogged right into it. And honestly, once again, gave me a world of opportunities, both to really fine-tune my leadership skills, both within, again, that peer group, but then also when you relate to others who are older than you, right? So there's this element of being able to say, hey, I can sit at this table, and I don't know how old or the experience of those around this table with me, but I know that I can both learn from them and offer my voice in different areas. And so it really just gave me this confidence and this ability to know, hey, what can we do in this world? How can we make a difference for the lives of both these students as well as families? Because family is at the core of FCCLA. And that's a value that I've carried with me through there.
It's a big part of your DNA, no doubt,
is,
development.
yeah.
So as you're going through high school and these leadership opportunities, obviously at some point this led your path in your road to Lubbock.
It did.
Texas Tech. So
It did.
Explain how the Texas Tech came into your life.
It did. So my FCCLA advisor was actually a Red Raider alumni as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so she was kind of already planting that seed in me. And of course, I knew that my financial resources were limited, and college at one point felt so far out of reach. But because of my high school career and because of just the things that I'd been able to do, it felt more possible. And I knew that the roots of the Red Raider community ran deep. Lots of my teachers at school were Red Raider alumni. And so I was grateful to have had that, just to kind of start planting the seed of where do I want to go. It was a community.
Yeah, within.
And it had West Texas roots as well. Being able to say this is an area that I believe in and I grew up in and I want to contribute to as well. And of course, having 3 younger siblings at home, my youngest sister is 12 years younger than me. And so I wanted to be that sister who was still able to come home and participate in some of their milestones that would happen, right? So my youngest sister was 4 when I moved out and when I went to school. And so being able to still come back and be a part of her growing up and being a support to her, as well as my brother who is 9 years younger than me, has been absolutely invaluable to me and so important. So that was kind of what led me to tech. The other piece was the program I was pursuing is one of the best in the nation.
Right.
And at the time it was through the College of Human Sciences. I understand the name has changed now. But my degree is in Human Development and Family Studies.
Okay, very good. some of your memories at Tech, favorite professors within the curriculum, but just student life in general. Reflect on that.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, there's so many opportunities for students to plug in and to develop that community that's more meaningful than just going to school and just being able to get a degree, right? It's definitely more long lasting. My favorite professor, I would have to say, was Dr. Sarah Dodd, and she taught a leadership in the community class. Gosh, I can't remember the name of the course right now, but one of the focuses again was that family and community development and encouraging us as students, how are we pouring back into the community, even while in school? Because there is this idea that maybe you go to school and then you move away and there's this is a temporary fun period of your life. But she really instilled in us that this wasn't just a time to kind of fly through. It was a time to examine what is going on in the community that you're at right now and how can you invest and pour into that. Because even though 4 years may seem like a short time, so much can happen and so much influence can be done during that time as well. And so through that, I participated in a couple of different organizations to volunteer, both just pouring into students, both elementary school students in the area.
So to speak to that, that fascinates me. It's so valuable, obviously, to pour yourself and invest into something, the needs. You made reference to that in your upbringing with FCCLA. But then as in the course and your instruction, the importance of pouring yourself into something. Obviously, whatever you pour yourself into is going to benefit from that. But speak to how that impacts you and how that makes you a better person. The value of doing that for the individual's sake.
Absolutely. So there's this piece of you that is exposed to areas that you were not aware of, right? Even in the smallest of ways. So let's say you're interacting with children, and maybe you're not as familiar with a child's development, or you didn't grow up around kids, and you're having that volunteer opportunity to come into a school and to just get to know a child, no matter the age. It changes you because now you become aware of an area that you just didn't know about. And you see...
Does this help with empathy?
I would agree, yes.
Not just
absolutely.
sympathy, but empathy.
Yes.
Is that part of being the wholesome, well-rounded individual?
Absolutely.
The traditional arts and sciences education.
For sure, absolutely. Being able to walk away saying, I now have the ability to look at someone else and to ask a deeper question.
Okay.
Not just oh, hi, how are you? But when you're interacting with that person, and this kind of bleeds into adulthood, and you realize that person, man, that was a rough interaction I just had. Yeah. I had a meeting the other day. It was a pretty rough meeting. We all have them. Yeah. It happens. And I walked away saying, I have no idea what that person has gone through in their life. I have no idea what their childhood looked like. And so, leaning back on all of the volunteer opportunities, all of the investments and the challenges of when you pour yourself into a community and you learn about an area that you didn't know about before, leads you to be able to, one, regulate yourself and realize it's not about you. It's never been about you.
Right.
But then to walk away and say, how can I serve that person better despite the fact that was a really rough meeting and I felt a little mistreated, or I felt a little led in the wrong direction. And so it takes the focus off of you.
So I guess it's therapy for kind of getting out of that victim mindset too.
Absolutely.
So we hear a lot about volunteer opportunities, and that's everybody's for volunteering. But you can volunteer selfishly in the sense that I want to volunteer because it's going to make me a better person in a way. So there's an intentional aspect of it as opposed to just doing it for the sake of whoever I'm volunteering for. But perhaps also I'm going to be a better person for having done this.
It's funny that you say that, because a while back I was attending a conference and the speaker had used this phrase that I hadn't heard before. And it kind of shined a light on this idea that people can often become very, very selfish without realizing it, and that wasn't the intention, right? So she had said, oftentimes we can become turkey tossers. So we go purchase a turkey
Right.
and we toss it over the fence to the person who we feel might need it most. And we say, enjoy your turkey for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever that holiday may be.
Right.
And then we come back and we realize that there was this relational piece that was missed. We never once connected with that family. And although there's nothing wrong with purchasing a turkey for a family in need and ensuring they have
Sure.
food, you did meet a need, and that is wonderful.
But there's another opportunity there.
There's a deeper opportunity.
Right.
And I think what I get to see now in my job at Family Promise is that deeper relational, right? We provide shelter for homeless families with children, but then we go deeper and we say, you're not alone. There's hope. There's a community here who wants to walk alongside you, and being able to just provide that support for them in a way that
So
they
there's
never
both pain and joy in that, right? So
Yeah.
you're walking the journey with them. And rough meetings, painful moments, hard decisions, I suspect, but joyful moments too. You've got some success stories. This organization and what y'all are doing.
Absolutely.
Speak to the success and how fulfilling that is for you personally.
For sure. Family Promise has existed for 27 years, since 1998, and has served well over 600 families with children who were facing homelessness, experiencing homelessness. Despite the misconception, it is a huge problem here in Lubbock and often goes unnoticed, simply because when there are children involved, you're willing to stay wherever you can to try to have just a roof over your head, but you do not have any physical or financial means to be
Right.
able to provide that for yourself. So we're talking families who are doubled up. We've got so many people in one room, children sleeping on floors, parents sleeping on couches. And then of course, what happens when whoever's overseeing that household says, this is too much, you're out. Now you're kind of in shambles, right? So Family Promise has a rich history of just serving so many families, so many that we are even unaware of how extensive the support has really gone.
Right.
But there have been so many families who have shared their success stories. Families, I'm thinking of one who had stayed in our shelter, I think about 10 years ago. So that would have been the church rotation model, which looked a little different from what we do now. But she is actually a motivational speaker now. And
wow.
I'm friends with her on Facebook, and last I had seen, she was in the Abilene area, but I think has moved since then. So being able to empower others. One of our team members is a wonderful mother, wife, and just hearing the barriers and things that she's overcome in her life alongside with her husband is empowering. Her and her husband had somewhat of a history with some substance abuse and had lost custody of some of their kids, and joined our program when they were pregnant with their 5th child. And because of their church connection with 2 of our huge supporters here in Lubbock, Quaker Avenue Church of Christ and Monterey Church of Christ, they were able to really plug in and have those deeper relationships with people who were not going to give up on them. So even though what we know about trauma is that it's not a one fix situation, right? Just because they have a house now doesn't mean that they're not going to struggle
Right.
with the interpersonal, the conflict management, some of the emotional turmoil that comes with just living a life of hard decisions. And so because of the people in those churches and the people of Family Promise who walked alongside them, they are thriving. They are thriving. They have a healthy marriage. They're plugged into a church. Their kids are in school. Their kids are doing well. And being able to see that every day. She's on our team now. And so she gets to walk alongside other moms and other families
So-
who are going through the same thing.
That's interesting. You mentioned the church model, but you also talk about, and obviously the organization has evolved over 27 years, I guess. You mentioned faith-based, but not faith-first.
Absolutely.
So speak to that a little.
For sure. So faith-based, not faith-first, speaks to a low barrier context. When a family comes to our door and they're in crisis, the last thing we want to do is say, well, you have to meet XYZ before we can help you, right? That is not a model that we feel empowers or encourages people when they're in the trenches, when they're in the middle of experiencing this crisis, they need their physical needs met first, and then we can start kind of walking into the deeper,
To put them in a better
things.
position to have the
Absolutely.
deeper discussions.
And so because of that, what we mean when we say faith-based, not faith-first, is that clients, families we serve, are not required to participate in any type of faith practice or have any type of faith proclamation, just a willingness and an openness to walk alongside us. And then we know that from our internal lens, we're faith-based. So we're going to prioritize those approaches that are going to be compassion driven. They're going to be relationally driven. And they're going to be driven by the partners in our church network who want to come and provide meals, who want to come and provide encouragement. We rely on our church network for a variety of needs when we serve our families. A lot of those are physical. Many of those are financial needs. We need that financial support from our community, and churches are generous in that, and they want to support ministries that are meeting the needs of the community that we have. And so that's where we...
Well, supporting a model that has success
Yes.
stories and has some
Yes.
continuity and is moving the needle towards success. That's what's got to be so encouraging and fulfilling as somebody like you that's kind of in the director's chair, seeing the progress and seeing how it's making a difference. I gather not 100% successful, I'm sure, but moving the needle aggregately as a whole.
For sure. Not every family is quite ready to make the changes needed to have a stable lifestyle or even just be able to have the resources they need to maintain a job, right? So when we're looking at what does it take to maintain a job? Well, stable emotions. And if you don't have those stable emotions, you have a mental illness that's really holding you back. Before we address the mental illness, we know you're not going to keep a job. If you can't keep a job, you can't pay your bills.
Right.
Can't pay your bills, you're going to become evicted again. So it really is a whole,
Deal with first
whole
things first.
encompassing, absolutely.
Right.
Asking the deeper questions, viewing the bigger picture, and having our churches come alongside, knowing how to do that. And they really have. They have been consistent and have been loyal to the ministry, and we have wonderful churches who are in our community.
All right, so going back to your tech days, your college days, you're married?
I am, yes.
And you found your husband during your time at college?
We did.
Jerry,
We
speak to
met.
that
Yes, we
relationship.
met while attending Texas Tech. We actually met at church, but both of us attended Texas Tech and absolutely enjoyed
What's
our
his
time.
major? What did he-
His major was electronic media and communications,
Oh, wow.
which I understand has also changed the title of that program.
That's my college.
Yes, but it was through the College of Media and Communication,
College.
and he loved it, loved his time at Tech, had wonderful professors who
Yeah.
also encouraged him to always dig a little deeper in his storytelling and his creativity, and challenging him to look beyond the surface level, right?
So you graduated in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What was his graduation?
2022.
So he's just a little
Yes.
bit behind you.
Yes.
All right, and I understand y'all have a little one on the way.
We do, yes.
We always like to say hashtag one of us, but in the case of y'all's two, hashtag two of us or hashtag one on the way, right?
Absolutely.
So what's the due date?
Our due date is April 11th, and we are thrilled. This is our first child. We're excited to be able to just take that next step into the Lubbock community, right? There's one thing when you meet someone in the same community. He's actually a Lubbock native himself,
Yeah.
and so his roots go very deep into the Lubbock community. But then being able to say you get married and you're going to invest in this community. Our desire is to serve Lubbock. We see the need here. We also see the generosity and the community that is rallying around what we both do. We both serve our community. Him in a little bit of a different way. Mine is more of a social work ministry, and his is more of a technical 911 element. But then being able to say, we're going to add to this community in a human way. We're going to be able to add a human to this community and say, this is where we're planted. And
Well,
we
you're gonna add a Red Raider.
we're going to add a Red Raider.
Boy, girl?
Boy.
Boy. Okay, so Would that be a second generation graduate? There you go. All right.
Absolutely. We're thrilled. We're excited to encourage
You
him.
can't start early enough.
I know. Well, and we've already been talking about that.
Yeah.
We've already been saying, how can we incorporate more conversation about tech from the time he's born all the way to when he's becoming a graduate of high school?
Well, we've got a program called Legacy Club, so you'll need to get them plugged
That's
in
right.
from infancy on, and that'll be great. Back to the organization. Speak to your board. You have great board support. Obviously, they have faith in you, but speak to the board leadership here locally. And I guess organizationally, again, nationally, the overall structure.
Our board is comprised of 10 local community members. These members, these directors, range in skill set all the way from pastors in our community to attorneys in our community to real estate agents in our community. And so we have a wide range of individuals who have come together and said, we recognize that family homelessness is an issue. And we also recognize that there's a way we can step in and we can help. And we can do something that makes a difference. And so our board of directors is strong. We've done lots of revitalization over the last year, examining where we want to be in the next 27. We've been around for over 25 years now. So what do we want the next 25 years to look like? And what is the need in the Lubbock community? Because that changes sometimes. The need is not always going to be the same. And although we know family homelessness will always remain at the core of Family Promise, how are we meeting that need? What does that look like? Will it always be a shelter? Or, we've introduced a prevention program where we can keep families in their home before they've ever even experienced homelessness in the first place. How can we incorporate that into our ministry and being able to meet the needs of families? So our board of directors has been incredible, establishing strong working committees, going out, advocating for us, being able to spread the message of what is the problem, here's the solution. And so I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful for their trust in me. Just being able to say, we see you, and their encouragement for my story, as well as walking alongside me in ways that no one is perfect. No one is perfect for any position. But being able to say, we want to strengthen the areas that you may not have strength in yet, right? As I grow as a leader, being able to not meet me with a criticism, but more of a constructive encouragement. Here's where we can.
Well, that's the beauty of boards, right? Because they bring that expertise and that counsel and support where it's needed throughout all of their professions and what they bring to the table, but also a commonality in that they believe in the cause. We have a board here with the Alumni Association that we value so much, and but they have a love for alma mater, right? But they bring that expertise and help us to be better at what we're doing. And I like what you said, you might not be good at this yet, but they're helping to hone you in different ways, because you may not know that much in the area of real estate or law and that, but they can bring that guidance. So it's so good and encouraging to read the story, their support for you, and obviously you in the position, because you served as an interim for how long?
For 3 months.
3 months.
I was interim director for 3 months.
They obviously liked what they saw.
Prior to that, I was program director for 2 years.
Right.
So I feel blessed that I'm able to say, I know our ministry through and through. I helped design some of the pieces of our ministry. And so I'm able to speak confidently when we talk about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Well, Monica, you're a natural. The story is inspiring. So many of our readers have already read it. For those that haven't, we encourage them to read it. But if not, at least they get to meet you face to face and hear your story a little bit. Proud of you and what you're doing and how you're making our community better, and the Family Promise Ministry national and what they're doing in so many other states. But we're glad to have a Red Raider leading us here at the local level. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Curt.
All right. Good luck.
Grateful to be here.